I'm Judy Hall, and I've been working with crystals for at least 45 years, but I have been interested in them since I was a very small child, a very long time ago. I was always fascinated with crystals, picked them up, used them all my life, and one day I wanted to look up the property of something, couldn't find it, so I wrote the Crystal Bible. And since then I've written many books on crystals. Oh, it's amazing actually, and I love hearing stories about where people have seen the Crystal Bible. The best one so far is at Everest Base Camp, but I've been thinking for a long time that I would actually run a competition to see who can see a Crystal Bible in the most amazing place. And it's just wonderful, I love it. And I love it when people bring me a really battered copy and they apologise when they want it signed because it's battered. I say, no, that's really good because it shows you've used it a lot. If somebody brings me one that's pristine, that worries me, unless they've just bought it, obviously, because it means they haven't really taken advantage of what's in there. Well, most of them are in specific places, but there's a really nice, it's called rhomboid blue selenite, and I bought some a while back in Glastonbury, and the guy said, oh, this was dug up when they were building a new Tesco. And so I thought, interesting. Went to a workshop, took it to a workshop, and a woman who was in the Cotswolds said, I've got that in my garden. And I was saying, right, I'd like some more, please. But that clears the third eye, so you hold it to your third eye, and any blocks on your intuition disappear. So that's a really good one, but it's something that is only in that area, like celestobarite, which is also a Cotswold stone, which is brilliant for shamanics. But literally anything that you pick up, whether it's rock, whether it's crystal, whatever it is, if you tune into it, you're connected to the earth and to earth healing, and some of them will take you journeying, and some of them will take you off to the stars. Lots of just milky quartz, that's everywhere, and you can use that. So the crystals don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be huge and bright and beautiful. They can be this. I mean, let's show you this. This is a piece off a mountain, the Crystal Dragon Mountain, and it's got just about everything that I need. I can journey with it, I can heal with it, I can do whatever. This is a Brandenburg, and this comes from one special place in Namibia. Now, if I only had one crystal in the world, if I was on a desert island with one crystal, this would be it. And you can see it's not particularly beautiful. Some Brandenburgs are absolutely beautiful. This is a bit battered, a bit bashed, but this is my crystal, and it will do anything I want. So people don't need lots of crystals. You can have them because they're nice to have around, but you can actually get a crystal that does everything. So it's not an expensive, all singing, all dancing, biggest, brightest crystal in the world. It's what works for you. Amethyst, and I mean this is a particular type of amethyst, but any amethyst, they all connect up at a level. There's a crystal oversoul, and any amethyst will help. There are other stones. There's one which somebody sent me a lump, it was a lump, and said they don't know whether to throw this away or whether to use it. And I picked it up and went, and the friend that was with me, who's also a crystal person, went, oh, they can't throw that away. You know, and that's now become, we called it Eye of the Storm, they call it Judy's Jasper. And that, it just brings you into this completely calm, quiet space. That's why we called it Eye of the Storm. It's like having a hurricane whirling round you. Very appropriate at the moment. Every time I see that picture of the hurricane that's going around Florida now, I just look at it and think, yeah, and that eye, the very centre of a storm, of a hurricane, is really calm, and the Eye of the Storm does that brilliantly. And it was nearly thrown away. And it would be such a shame to lose it. I would say come to one of my workshops and have one about the size of my little fingernail and see that it works just as well. I know people are sceptical, and I've had people say to me, oh, it's psychosomatic. Well, if it is, if it helps, does it matter? But actually I think it's the energy of the crystals, because they hold a perfect pattern within them. And the way I see it is the crystal, our energy is very erratic. It goes out of sync very easily. And you've got a perfect one. So if you have the perfect energy here and my energy is a bit erratic, the crystal with the perfect energy will entrain my energy back into a better state of harmony. And that's what works, I think. At a very deep level, it's about energies coming into harmony. But the best thing to do with somebody who's sceptical is give them a crystal. It works virtually every time. But if it doesn't, people come up to me and say, oh, I've got this crystal, it doesn't work. I say, well, have you asked it to? And they usually look blank and go, no. You know, they think they're going to a shop, pick it up, and it's going to work. Well, it might, but if you ask it to work, it will work much better. And then they'll say, oh, this crystal used to do my headache. Now it gives me a headache. I said, well, have you cleaned it? Again, we get this very blank sort of look. And you need to keep your crystals cleansed, you need to ask them to work with you, and then you've got a much better chance of it actually doing what you need. But like everything else, what you need may not be what you thought you wanted. And so it may do something which is different. So skeptics, fine, I don't ever bother to try and persuade them. I just let the crystals do it, or I just let it float past me and just carry on with my way of doing it. What I would do, and I do this a lot for clients, but usually for people who've asked, but if somebody says, oh, I've got someone who doesn't believe in this or hasn't really got an open mind, but I would like to help them. What I do is ask the crystal to work for that person for their highest good, but I wouldn't say that it must work. I will always say if it's appropriate. And I think that's the best thing people can do, is just ask a crystal to work, put it aside, and leave it to do the work. I wouldn't force a crystal on anybody. I wouldn't force healing. It's like if you send distance healing. I would never say this must work. This person must accept it. I will say, and I do work a lot with the higher self, who can see a bit further, and so I usually ask the higher self, if this is appropriate, will you help this person to work with this energy that the crystal is sending? I clean the space that I'm going to work in, drop a petal tone Z14 on the floor. Sometimes I will actually grid the space as well if it feels like it needs it. And then I just sit down and tune in to the crystal energies. I've already cleaned my energies. But I find that working with the crystals, they know what they want to do. And it may be as much of a surprise to me as everybody else, but my energies will have been prepared and the right crystals will be there, rather than me having to think, oh, what are we going to do? What do we need? It's like the workshop we'd just done. When I got on the train yesterday, I had no idea we were going to go and talk to the crystal dragons, but they made it known that that's what they wanted to do, and we happened to have the crystals that we needed with me. You know, they appear, or they tell me beforehand, you need to take me. And I do. Okay. I've learned to trust the process now. you can feel the energy of a crystal. And if you take a picture with a Cheltenham camera, you get an energy signature, an energy picture. But especially with digital cameras, it seems to work more so than it used to with the old film, you know, with using film. That somehow, and I don't know the science of the process, it encapsulates the energy into the picture and then it radiates it out. But very often it's the rougher, more battered crystals that actually are the most powerful. And I always think, well, they've got empathy. I call them empathy nicks. You know, they've been battered, they've been bashed, they've been blasted sometimes from their base. And they know what it feels like to have those things happen. And so they work, they're more empathetic. But if you have a really beautiful crystal and you photograph it, sometimes you will get the energy, and I've got one or two that Michael Ilias, who's my photographer of choice, took, where the energy they're beautiful and they radiate. But I've also got ones where the crystals aren't as beautiful and they've actually got more energy. And so, you know, I spend a lot of time saying, please can we use the crystal photograph that has the energy and not just the beauty that you can see on the surface. And if I'm poking through a bag of crystals, quite often what sticks to my fingers will not be the most beautiful, but it'll be the one that's got the power. This was Auralite 23, which comes from the Cave of Wonders, which I love that name. And it's a type of amethyst that's got a lot of other minerals in it. And this lady came to the workshop and every time we did anything, she went, yes, but, and went back, and the old story came out again and again for 2 days. And so we put Auralite 23 all around her head in a grid. We laid her down and put it around her. And then everybody else went off and did their own thing, and we left her there for about an hour. We stayed with her, 2 of us stayed with her. And when we took them away, we said to her, now don't say anything. And she was still a bit shell-shocked and kind of, you know, I'm not quite sure what happened there, because she'd actually been halfway through a sentence when we put the crystals down, and she'd gone, and she lay there for that hour going, you know, and she drifted off. And then when we got back and she started talking, she didn't actually go back over the old ground again, and she actually had a blood cancer. And when she came back a month later, that blood cancer had gone into remission. And I'm quite convinced that it was that she was constantly repeating this old, very negative belief pattern about her health and everything. And for a whole month, she hadn't repeated that pattern. And that allowed her body to heal. And I think that's what crystals do. They create the space that allows the body's healing mechanism to work, to go into full gear, as it were. And as far as I know, she's still in remission. You can overdo crystals. I think partly it depends on your energy level and how used to crystals you are. But secondly, some crystals don't actually mix very well. And people get hyper because the crystal energy is so powerful. I'm sleeping at the moment above my dining room, which is stuffed full of crystals, as I haven't had time to take them back to my storage unit. But I actually had to get a storage unit because there was too much energy. And I think be selective really is the best thing. And also keep those crystals clean. If they're around and you haven't cleansed them, they've been doing their job of pulling in the energies, transmuting the energies. They need cleaning. But I do think be selective, have harmonious crystals, keep them clean. It works better than they're everywhere. And anybody who knows me would laugh at that because my house is stuffed full of them. something like the Brandenburg or one of the immune system stimulators, so Bloodstone or Quantum Quattro, something like that, just placed over your thymus, higher heart chakra, which is an immune stimulator point. I would just literally put that there, close my eyes, breathe deep, and ask the crystal to stimulate my immune system. And that keeps you healthy. I mean, I get on trains, planes, crowded places all the time, and everybody says to me, how come you don't get these dreadful stomach bugs? I do occasionally pick something up, but it goes very quickly, partly because I drink shungite water as well. But the more you can keep your immune system, and I wear labradorite to screen my energies when I'm in a workshop as well, because we have a psychic immune system, and I don't want to take everybody's stuff on board. I want to screen it. So that's what I do, just hold up your crystal, look at it, and focus on it for 5 minutes, breathing deep. That's all you need. I think the Manchester Airport, the domestic terminal has full body scanners, or had full body scanners. So I was there. I always, anyway, have shungite in my bra, I have green aventurine in my bra. I'd come straight from a workshop, but I knew I was going up to Manchester and there was a good chance I'd be in the full body scanner. So Julie was really late with the pilot for my plane behind me, and I said to him, I'm not letting you go in front. And we stood there and they took these three elderly ladies in wheelchairs, took their wheelchairs to pieces. And I'm thinking, so they directed me and the pilot to the full body scanners. And so the guy who is looking at me through the full body scanner, looking at my underwear, says, one of those. And all round my bra and in my pockets were lumps of crystal. So I said, well, that one's shungite to protect me from the energies of this. This one's green aventurine to protect me from that. And his mouth just dropped open. And he didn't send me for the full body search. He just, this woman's crazy, let her go. And most of them are, what's this all about? But it's really funny. I was in Egypt, which I love, and you have to go through 5 scanners to actually get to the door of the plane. And I had a big sodalite head, which I'd found in Meritaten, and a couple of other things, and a whole lot of golden healers, which I'd picked up in a Nubian temple. So every time my bag went through the scanner, they thought I was stealing antiquities. But the minute I showed them that they were actually stones and crystals, those guys were just wonderful. And they would shout to the next, by the time I'd been through about 3, they would shout to the next one, stones, not antiquities, fine, you know, and I could go through. So they actually understood that a couple of, because I said stones from the temple, not carvings, you know, they understood that I'd taken those, they're just literally plain pebbles from the energy place to take home, and they totally understood that. It was great. Again, I think amethyst is a really good general crystal for that. I find it works well, and because it lowers anxiety, then that is always a good foundation. But if it is anxiety or depression, things like that, things like kunzite, which has got natural lithium, which is what they would give you for bipolar, that will help to calm your energies and balance your energies. If you're on things like chemo, which, you know, you've really got to take the drugs, but the side effects can be nausea, things like that, then something like a big lump of green calcite will actually calm the nausea. I took some into a friend who was on very heavy duty chemo. And I wish I'd got the picture, because she was curled up in bed round this big lump, and it calmed her nausea immediately. But what was so interesting was the nurse came in and looked at her and said, you know, what are you doing? And she said, I've got this crystal for my sickness. And the nurse said, your colour's changed. You're no longer green. And the crystal's very green. And she said, you're getting colour back. And she said, I don't feel sick anymore. And she was obviously still quite chemoed, you know. But the nurse said, I think we should get more of those. And that attitude I love, you know, that you're open to bringing in integrative medicine. It's not even just complementary, it actually integrates what conventional medicine can do with what things like crystals can do. One of the things that I'd really like to share with people is the fact that you don't actually need a lot of crystals. You don't even need a crystal. That's why I did the Crystal Wisdom Healing Oracle, which has got photographs which can capture the energy, and you can just put one of those on you. It's the simplest thing in the world to have a crystal and use a crystal and enjoy. So if you're feeling very stressed, the best thing you can do for yourself is to pick up a crystal, whichever crystal attracts you, hold it, focus on it, breathe. And by breathe, I mean take a deep breath, take it all the way down to the bottom of your belly, to the base of your belly. In, hold it, and then and all the while focusing on your crystal. Once you've done that a few times, you can put your crystal down. Whenever you begin to feel stressed or you recognize one of the triggers coming your way, simply breathe. In, down into your belly, hold it, out again. The crystal energy will have stayed with you, it'll be in your energy field, it will keep you calm. And that breaks the cycle of anxiety and stress. Very simple, but very effective.